This is a stove made out of a couple of V8 Fusion cans. They're the same size as a Red Bull can. You can use a couple of those too, or whatever small 8-ounce can. It's smaller than the 12-ounce can stove in diameter, and I've done the holes a little bit differently than what you usually see on an alcohol stove. I've made one inner chamber. It's a double wall stove. One inner chamber that's separate from the outer chamber in order to not have to have an outside primer pan or having to light anything below the stove on fire in order for it to start heating the alcohol enough to cause the evaporation and then firing the jets. So on this stove, it's kind of a self-contained unit. All you need is this and a pot stand and a pot. So I got the idea for this stand from another video on YouTube. So, and then a little Sierra cup on top, and it's a pretty light, efficient little stove. The drawbacks to it is that the primer burns, little primer chamber burns pretty weakly, so if you have any wind it might blow it out. You might have to light it a few times, and it takes a while to prime. It takes about a minute and a half before it starts firing the jets, and then there's not much flare up. It will fire up the jets, come up to temperature, and burn really nice. You can also see that I've put a different type of hole pattern onto this. So instead of just evenly spacing the holes all the way around, I've kind of designed it more like how a gas stovetop is done, and having groups of holes spaced around with more of a gap between those groups of holes. This is the first one that I did that was sort of not evenly spaced, so I like the way it works. I've changed a little bit. I'm going to build another one and show you how to make this stove, and show you the new hole spacing that I'm going to try out and see if that works any better than the original here. Another drawback is that the outer chamber, the only way to fill it is through the jets, so you have to use a syringe in order to fill it. The other option would be to build this out of something stronger and put in a threaded rivet and a thumb screw, which is what I'm going to do on a final design. But I just want to get the hole pattern right and the shape and design and things, so I'll fill it up and show you what it looks like when it's going. Just a little bit in the center to prime it, and we'll touch it off. can see the jets are starting to want to go now, starting to boil. There we go, the jets are starting to go. So besides the disadvantages of a long prime time and having to inject the fuel into the jets, there's no other real drawbacks besides it's a little bit harder to build than what you normally would do for a soda can alcohol stove. So there's a tiny bit more of craftsmanship involved, but not a lot. So I think anybody that can build a pop stove anyway could be well able to build this. So and what I use for tools, it's really whatever you have on hand, so you don't have to use the same things that I use. I just happen to have that stuff, so I use it. Okay, so it's coming up to temperature a little bit more now. You can see it takes a long time before it really starts running, and I'm not sure why I'm getting that orange flame. There might be something on the sides there, but usually it burns just nice blue flame. And the pattern, I like the flame pattern. And it's more efficient, I think. It'll boil water fairly quickly. In my Sierra cup, I did a boil test and it boiled the water right about 6 minutes, and it ran for about 15 minutes with 1 ounce of fuel and injected into the outer chamber. So you could actually bring almost 3 Sierra cups to boil with 1 ounce of fuel, which I put 8 ounces of cold water in the Sierra cup. Sierra cup was cold, and used the same pot stand that I showed you before. So this is what it looks like when it runs. So I put 10 milliliters in, which is almost a little over 1/3 of an ounce, and I didn't put a timer on, but pretty neat little stove, I think. I really like it. I like the size of it and the fact that it doesn't need a primer pan and it doesn't need any wick material around the outside, which really, if you wanted to, you can use a wick material. In colder temperatures it's not going to work that great, but in a warmer climate you don't need the primer pan at all. If it's colder outside, then you can use one, which I have for it. But now it's burning a pretty solid blue flame. Bicycle spoke. With 1/3 of an ounce, I don't think we're going to have enough burn time left to get this going, but you can see the flame pattern hits the Sierra cup pretty good. So the Sierra cup bottom just a little bigger than the bottom of a 12-ounce can, so any of the homemade pots would work. This would be a nice flame pattern for any of the homemade pots, and you just need your pot stand or windscreen slash pot stand, whatever you're going to use, to be about 2 inches above the stove, and you really hit the center of that pot real nice. So Sierra Cup boils pretty quickly. It's got 8 ounces of water in it right now. I don't think there's going to be enough fuel to bring it to a rolling boil, but it'll get the water hot enough for tea or whatever else. Again, you saw I put just under 10 milliliters in there, so we're getting a long burn time. And there's no lid on the Sierra Cup, so it's just boiling. I'm about at sea level. And it's dying down now, but it was enough to get some bubbles going on the bottom there. Enough, that's hot enough to make tea right now. So 1/3 of an ounce of fuel gets it hot enough to make tea. An ounce of fuel will give you 15 minutes of burn time. You can bring 2 of these Sierra Cups to boil with that. And it's out. Okay, I'll show you how to build this stove, and hopefully you can enjoy it, bring it with you, and have a more efficient yet highly effective stove, in my opinion. I mean, that thing, it puts out just as much heat as any of the 12-ounce pressurized stoves. So